Ever stop and think about what actually happens when you make an international call? It feels so seamless, right?
Instantaneous.
But behind it, there's this huge, often really inefficient system, the global telecom wholesale voice industry.
Exactly. And it's kind of, well, creaking at the seams,
Hmm.
full of hidden costs, inefficiencies.
Yeah.
It's ripe for a shakeup.
Definitely. And that's what we're digging into today. We're looking at some insights from the Zeebu Whitepaper.
Right. The white paper outlines a new way forward, tackling these long-standing problems head-on.
So our mission for this deep dive, really get under the hood of what's wrong with telecom wholesale voice and how Zeebu thinks they can fix it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so maybe start with the basics. What is this telecom wholesale industry exactly? What function does it serve?
Think of it as the connective tissue. It lets different telecom companies, carriers, operators all over the world exchange voice calls, data, even messages between their networks.
Ah, okay, so it's the behind the scenes plumbing that makes my call to another country actually connect.
Precisely. It's the essential backbone for that global communication between different providers.
Got it. But as you said, and the white paper points out, this backbone, it has some issues, some serious ones.
Oh, absolutely. The white paper highlights major inefficiencies, a real lack of transparency, and ultimately high costs.
Okay.
And these aren't just, minor complaints. They have real bottom line consequences for the businesses involved.
Like what? How do these problems actually hurt?
Well, the white paper mentions things like significant revenue loss just from manual reconciliation processes, trying to match up records by hand, basically.
Wow, really? That sounds tedious and error prone.
It is. And that leads to what they call revenue leakages, money just
Mhm.
slipping through the cracks because the system is opaque and complex.
Okay, revenue leakage, what else?
Then there are the payment delays, remittance delays, because the traditional ways involve multiple banks, intermediaries. It can take weeks, sometimes even months, for companies to get paid for the services they've already provided.
Months. That could kill a business's cash flow.
It absolutely can, especially smaller players.
Now, the white paper mentions the traditional nature of the industry. What does that mean? Is it just old-fashioned?
Partly, yeah. It refers to these long-established ways of operating, often built on, well, relationships rather than open data, lots of manual processes, not much automation.
So kind of opaque?
Very opaque sometimes. It can lead to trust issues between the different companies. Information on pricing, transaction details, it's not always shared freely, like trying to buy something without knowing the price up front.
Okay, I see the picture now. A bit murky, slow, expensive. So in walks Zeebu. What's their big idea?
Their ambition is pretty significant. They want to uh, revolutionize it, create a decentralized and transparent ecosystem just for exchanging voice traffic.
Right. Decentralized, transparent. We hear those words a lot, especially with new tech. What do they mean here for phone calls?
Okay, so practically it means using blockchain technology.
Hmm.
The core idea is to build a secure system where trust isn't based on intermediaries, but on the tech itself.
A trustless environment.
Exactly, where buyers and sellers of this voice traffic can deal directly with each other. Cut out some of the middlemen.
And blockchain is the foundation for that.
Hmm.
How does having this, like, digital ledger help with the problems we talked about, the opacity, the delays?
Well, the blockchain creates this shared, unchangeable record of every single transaction. It's immutable.
Meaning no one can secretly alter it later?
Precisely. So you get this clear, auditable history that everyone involved can see. That inherently tackles the transparency issue.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the specific features Zeebu is building on top of that blockchain?
The white paper highlights a couple of key things.
Yeah.
One is transparent pricing. Everyone can see the going rates.
Like an open market?
Kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the other big one is using smart contracts for payment settlements.
Ah, smart contracts. Those are the self-executing agreements, right?
Yeah.
Code that runs automatically.
They automatically carry out the terms, in this case, payment, once certain conditions are met,
Yeah.
like the call data is verified.
So that cuts out the manual back and forth.
Exactly. Reduces the need for someone to manually check and approve payments, which dramatically speeds things up. It tackles those huge settlement delays we mentioned.
So the blockchain provides the trust and transparency, and the smart contracts handle the speed and automation of payments. Is that the core?
That's a huge part of it. Facilitating direct exchange, automating payments.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about reducing that reliance on the traditional, often slow and costly intermediaries.
Less friction, fewer costs.
That's the goal. Significantly lower transaction costs and just better efficiency overall.
Okay, let's drill down a bit. How does this direct, transparent model specifically help with things like, say, fraud or disputes between carriers?
Right, because every transaction detail is on that permanent shared ledger. The blockchain, it's much harder for any kind of fraud to happen undetected.
Accountability.
Exactly. There's a high degree of accountability. And if there's a dispute, you have this single unalterable source of truth to refer back to. Makes resolving disagreements much faster and, frankly, less contentious.
Okay, that sounds promising. Now, back to those payment delays, the remittance issue. How do smart contracts and this DeFi you mentioned fix that?
A good question. So DeFi, decentralized finance, applies these decentralized principles to financial tools. Think faster, more automated financial operations without relying solely on traditional banks.
Okay.
By combining smart contracts with DeFi protocols, Zeebu aims to make payments almost instant, or at least much, much faster,
Yeah.
bypassing the old, slow banking rails and their fees and delays,
So shrinking payment cycles from potentially months?
down to maybe hours or even less in some cases. That's a potential game changer for cash flow.
Absolutely. Now, the white paper also talked about loyalty token rewards. How do they fit in? Is this like air miles for telecom?
Huh, sort of. The idea is that for every transaction on the Zeebu platform, both the buyer and the seller get rewarded with these tokens.
Ah, so it's an incentive.
Exactly. It's designed to encourage everyone to actually use the platform and participate actively in the ecosystem. The more business you do on Zeebu, the more rewards you can earn.
Clever. A built-in way to drive adoption. So if we pull back and look at the big picture,
Hmm.
what's the ultimate potential impact if this works?
The potential is, well, it's quite large. Zeebu envisions making the whole telecom wholesale voice industry way more efficient, definitely more cost-effective, and more competitive overall.
Benefits for everyone involved.
That's the idea. Buyers, sellers, potentially leading to better profitability, smoother operations. It really targets those core friction points that have, held the industry back.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier this is all fundamentally tied to Web3 technology. Can you expand on that link a bit?
Sure. Zeebu's whole approach is Web3. The blockchain is the decentralized database.
Yeah.
The tokens act as incentives and potentially other functions within their ecosystem.
Right.
And the smart contracts automate agreements and processes without needing a central authority figure like a traditional clearinghouse.
So blockchain, tokens, smart contracts, they're not just add-ons. They're the actual engine making this decentralized marketplace possible.
Precisely. The white paper really stresses that using these specific Web3 tools is the way to build that more efficient, secure, cost-effective ecosystem they're aiming for.
And the decentralized part gives businesses more confidence.
Yeah, the idea is that because it's not controlled by one single entity and because it's transparent, businesses can transact with more confidence. It's less vulnerable to single points of failure or, hidden manipulation.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. We started with the old world. The traditional telecom, wholesale voice industry, kind of opaque, slow, costly, riddled with inefficiencies.
Check. Lots of friction.
Then we looked at Zeebu's proposal, using Web3 tech blockchain for transparency and trust, smart contracts for speed and automation.
Right. Plus the loyalty tokens as an incentive, all aimed at enabling direct transactions, cutting out intermediaries, speeding up payments, and just building a more reliable system.
And the end goal is a healthier, more efficient, more competitive industry for everybody.
That's the vision laid out.
It definitely makes you think, though. If this kind of decentralized approach, blockchain, smart contracts can potentially fix such deep-rooted issues in this industry, what other big established sectors might be next? Where else could this kind of transparency and efficiency make a huge difference?
That is a fascinating question to ponder, isn't it? I mean, you could look at almost any industry that relies heavily on intermediaries, complex international transactions, or suffers from a lack of trust or transparency.
Like,
Well, global supply chain management comes to mind immediately. Tracking goods, verifying authenticity, payments, or international trade finance, even parts of the energy sector, perhaps. Anywhere complex B2B transactions happen across borders.
yeah, lots of possibilities. It's powerful stuff, this idea that technology could put so much more transparency and efficiency to how global commerce actually works. Really interesting. Thanks for walking through this with me.
My pleasure. It's definitely a space to watch.